Good Maranatha morning, everyone. Happy Monday. Get my screens all figured out here. Bear with me. Okay, let's see. Okay. So, oh my gosh, so much going on. It's crazy, crazy times we're living in. Hey, James. Good to see you. Good Maranatha morning. Hey, last generation. Awesome. Does the sound okay? It actually looks like I'm squeaking into the red here. Let me turn it down just a little. Hi, Sarah Adams. Andrea, hi. All right. So, I was watching John Haller yesterday. I love his prophecy updates on Fellowship Bible Chapel YouTube channel. And he said something that concerned me. And I'm going to name the broadcast after this topic. He said something like, his whole thing was about censorship, right? You know, especially the beginning of his broadcast. He was talking about how, you know, basically he who must not be named. Because if you say the name, it's kind of like saying the name Voldemort in the Harry Potter movies. If any of you have seen the Harry Potter movies, you know that nobody wanted to say the name Voldemort because it was just this fear that would grip people. So basically, John Haller didn't want to say the name Alex Jones because he said that already other YouTube channels and channels on social media have been taken down because they even talk about Alex Jones. So to me, it reminds me, again, of nobody wants to say the name Voldemort because they're afraid of what could happen. I feel the exact opposite. I think we need to be able to freely speak. I've already said the name Alex Jones multiple times since all this censorship stuff started, and we have to fight for our rights to free speech until kingdom come, until the Lord Jesus, you know, comes back for us. So I'm not going to live in fear of that. If that means that we end up having to go to a different platform other than YouTube, does that mean that Maranatha Morning's days could be numbered on this platform? It could. It could mean that. So I've been looking into other platforms, especially platforms that really support free speech and support conservative ideals. I've heard good things about BitChute, BITCHUTE, but I looked it up on Android and they don't appear to have an app. So, and they don't appear to have live streaming either. Scotty mentioned a platform that is like pro-conservative, pro-free speech, all that stuff. But I misplaced my note where I wrote down the name of it. So I have to ask him again. But if any of you know any good platforms, I'm going to go ahead and get a couple other things going just in case, because it seemed like, you know, the thing with Alex Jones was going to be the beginning and that it might take some time for them to extend the attack out onto other channels, other platforms, but it really is going much faster than I expected. Already Pinterest has also taken Alex Jones down. You know, it really has been quite a conspiracy that all these platforms did it pretty much all on the same day or within days of one another. So, and then other people who are talking about Alex Jones, especially in a way that seems to support him, they are also being removed. So I'm not going to worry about it. Whatever happens, happens, and we're just going to say what needs to be said. Whatever the truth is, the truth needs to be free to disseminate. So let's take a look at the chat here. We have James Warwick, Last Generation, Sarah Adams, Andrea Rohrer. Good morning, good morning. Amber, John Gillis, Courtney Chambers, good morning. Galia loves Messiah, Candy, Jazer Lights, Dennis, first timer, welcome. Diane Blue, let's see here. John, yeah, one day it will be illegal to be Christian. It could very well be. It could very well be. In fact, over the weekend, I went to see a fantastic movie in the theater called Death of a Nation. Galia has a question about the biometric ID. I'm not sure I'll know anything about it, but if I don't, maybe it's something to study up on. So, I went to see this movie in the theater called Death of a Nation. You can go, I think it's deathofanationmovie.com. You can go and check out and see if there's a theater near you where you can go and watch it. I totally recommend it. The movie is one of the Dinesh D'Souza movies. The guy has written best-selling books. I have an article here from WND where they interviewed him, and I believe this article is not new. The article is from this time last year, August of 2017. But I think it's interesting, given everything that's going on right now, it's perfect. So we're going to take a look at this. The name of this article is The Rise of Fascism. It's already entrenched on the left. And in the movie, he's talking about how, when we go to school, we're taught to believe that there was this big switch that happened between conservatism and progressive liberalism. But actually, it's really them trying to rewrite the narrative and paint the conservative, especially Christian right wing as the fascists, when in all actuality, it's the left that are the fascists. So we're going to take a look at that right now, because I believe that this kind of truth has to get out now while we still have opportunities to get it out, because it seems like they're really trying hard to shut us up. So Catherine D says, still seeking prayer for my grandson Asher, lung infection, needed resuscitated twice, but is now stable. He has a long way to go. Thank you for your prayers. Absolutely, Catherine D. We will pray. Oh. Galia is talking about the biometric ID, and she says they require a biometric ID here in Israel, and I'm not sure what to do. Oh, wow. I'm going to have to write that down. Biometric ID Israel. Kind of sounds, I don't know anything about it, but kind of sounds Mark of the Beastish, doesn't it? That's something that Paul did a video about, this 5G stuff that's coming out, and how business, they're already saying in the secular news that if businesses don't upgrade to this and upgrade to that, that they're going to be quote unquote left behind. This 5G stuff is going to be divisive even amongst Christians, because in order, look what's happening now. We're already being silenced, and then if we want to continue getting messages out, then we're going to have to kind of go with the times of technology and continue to upgrade and upgrade and upgrade. There just may come a point where we just have to walk away from it. But we'll see. We'll see. Gloria says, I think to never take any devices. Yes. Last Generation, we're going to do a live stream with Robert Breaker tomorrow at 5 p.m. Central on the Max Bauer channel for anyone interested. Cool. Let me write that down too. Max Bauer channel. I really like Robert Breaker. So that's Tuesday, tomorrow, at 5 Central. Do you know what the topic is going to be at Last Generation? If you don't, that's okay. Kevin Jung, good morning. Good morning, everyone. James says, kindly click that like button, everyone. Yes, 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 yes. Jazer Lights, Lord, be gracious to us. We long for you. Be our strength every morning, our salvation in times of distress. Isaiah 33:2. Mary says, can they make bartering illegal? Probably can, because how can you tax that? So they probably can, because that's in a cash, in a system with cash, that's the same thing. It's really hard for them when you're using cash for them to know what's really going on. If you're using electronic, then there's no way to hide electronic transfers of money and income. But with cash, you really can't track everything. So, Lordship salvation is the topic for the Robert Breaker. Cool. Okay. Interesting. So, yeah, let me start again by telling everyone who has now, joined the live stream. In the very beginning, I was talking about how I was watching, some of my favorite shows yesterday evening, John Haller being probably at the top of my list. I also really love watching JD, but John Haller, in an effort to preserve the Fellowship Bible Chapel YouTube channel, he refrained from saying the name Alex Jones. So I'm saying that the name Alex Jones is like the Harry Potter movie where everyone calls Voldemort he who must not be named. It's so surprising that we're here at this juncture. In a way, I wondered, because of the rapture, and we know that he's coming back for us and coming back for us soon, I just wondered if we would even see this, but we are seeing it. So, but again, I believe we are not to have a spirit of fear, that we just need to keep on keeping on and not worry about, I'm not going to curtail my speech for them, even if that means we have to go somewhere else. So, make sure, and I'm putting it in the description box after this live stream, make sure to join my email list, because if this channel were to ever get taken out, I mean, it could happen. I have been talking about Alex Jones. It could happen sooner than we think. Who knows? Alex Jones kind of knew the writing was on the wall for his channel in advance. He knew it was going to happen. So I'm sure he did things to prepare. So my way to prepare for it is I do have an email list where you can go sign up for it. And if there's going to be any changes, if I'm going to be on a different platform, then you'll be able to get notified of that. And I don't do a lot. I've only sent out one email on my email list so far. And I've been talking about it, I think, for a month. So I'm not a big emailer, so I'm not going to spam you is what I'm trying to say. But joining the email list, just in case anything happens, is a good thing to do. Let's see what's on the chat here. Last Generation says, that's my shameless plug, Samantha. Oh, no worries. No worries. I don't mind at all. Kevin Jung, just dropped my girls off for their first day of indoctrination. Aw, yeah, I noticed all the school buses starting this morning. My kids have been back since last Wednesday. So, wow, Nancy Anderson says her computer says it's 5G already. Wow. I've heard that they're going to roll it out the end of this year, that there are going to be some places that are already up and running on it. So I'm going to do more studying up on it, because it's amazing how much faster it's going to be. And I think that it could very well be the foreshadowing of whatever the mark of the beast will be. That this technology could be what they use to implement whatever is implanted or branded on people with the mark of the beast. I mean, what we have now won't quite cut it, obviously. I mean, we all do still get lags in our internet connections, and, if they're going to have total, full authoritarian control over the world, what we have now just won't work. It's not quite enough. So we are seeing it all coming together, and I do think it's interesting that all this is happening right as we come into the month of Elul. Yesterday, I was going to talk about it last Friday, and speaking of that, I'll catch everyone up on what's going on with the interview with Pastor Robert too. So yesterday, Sunday the 12th, was the first day of Elul. There's a lot of really interesting stuff about Elul. Elul is, the final 40 days countdown until the Feast of Trumpets. So we are officially in that time period right now. It's known as a time of testing, a time of repentance, a time of praying, when the books in heaven are open, including the book of life. the Hebrew peoples, they believe that, you know, this is the time of year where what's going to happen to you and, you know, the blessings of your next year of life is partly dependent on what's going on right now. So they're very pensive and prayerful and repentant during this time period. There's also a lot of really other interesting things that go on, and I'll get into more of that. I have a cool website that I found that talks about some of the things that have happened in history on the first day of Elul, and I think at day 1 through 11, some really interesting patterns. So I think God is a God of patterns. So if we want to be on his clock, on his calendar, we should pay attention to that kind of stuff. So one of the things was Moses went up for 40 days after the golden calf incident praying for atonement. Again, it's a time of repentance, of prayer. Yeshua on Elul 1 went into the wilderness for his 40 days of testing, you know, testing by the devil himself. So a lot of really interesting things on that. Let's take a look really quick at this article. I'm talking about this movie. Again, I'm really recommending it. I'll try to, you know what, let me write myself a note to link to Death of a Nation. Because I think, you know, with what we see going on right now, it's important to know the truth. It's important to know the truth. So, Dinesh D'Souza. Okay, so this article is from WND, again, from a year ago, called The Rise of Fascism. It's already entrenched on the left. So if you turn on MSNBC for long enough, you're going to hear them talking about fascism. You're going to hear them accusing the right of fascism, and especially trying to make connections between the right wing and Nazism, fascism, over sense of nationalism. So let's take a look at some of the roots of this. The movie does a really, really good job of that, of clearing up all of the misinformation and how some people on the left have worked really hard to change history and rewrite the narrative completely. Okay. In an interview with Stefan Molyneux of Freedom Domain Radio, Dinesh D'Souza discussed the state of American politics and his remarkable discoveries while writing his new book, which this was again a year ago, The Big Lie, Exposing the Nazi Roots of the American Left. He said the left-wing journalists complaining of the growth of fascism are being deeply disingenuous because white supremacists don't have any actual power. For example, you know, they really want to peg all this attention on white supremacists, but they have no power to keep a book out of the library. They don't have the power to decide what students read in school. They can't drive conservative or liberal speakers off campuses. They just don't have that. They don't own the media. They don't own academia. They don't own the mainstream news outlets. They're inconsequential in the larger scheme. And that was one of the things he said, is that a lot of these people who are out there as white supremacists, I forget the guy's name that he used as an example of, they're not actually conservatives. They're actually more like liberals in their, if you really get down to the core of what they believe. So one of them was talking about nationalism, and the guy didn't even believe in nationalism. He believed in, you know, how, I'm not doing it justice. I'm going to continue just a second. This will really bring it home. Okay. D'Souza said that the coordinated media campaign against white nationalists is pure projection by the actual fascists who control major American institutions. Goliath is trying to take his own fascism and impose it on the flea. he said. The more dangerous fascism in America today is in the institutions. It's not even Antifa. It's the Hollywood boss who gets to say who works in the industry. It's the dean who controls $1 billion endowment who gets to exclude a whole swath of conservative thought from campus. It's the ability of the media to bludgeon people into submission, to threaten to humiliate them and destroy them and make them pariahs if they don't pay obeisance to prevailing ideologies. Wow. That's really what I'm trying to say in a nutshell is, you know, if you don't agree with the left, they really just want to shut you down. And that's sad. You know, there are a lot of very secular people on YouTube that I've watched recently just to get a basic idea of what people are saying about the censorship issue. And one guy, I mean, I couldn't even tell if he was even a Christian. But for what I'm trying to paint here, I mean, it matters, but for this, it kind of doesn't. What he was saying is that the fact that we can have disagreements is a good thing. You know, if you've got somebody like Alex Jones sometimes says really stupid things. People need to be able to make their own decision. Like, oh, well, that was stupid. I'm not going to pay attention to that. But then if you've got large companies who are making decisions for us about what we should and shouldn't listen to, then that's a problem. And then on the other side of it, I saw a headline. I think this is from the New York, it was either the New York Post or New York Times. I think it was the New York Times. It says, Trump's blocking of Twitter users is unconstitutional, a judge says. I don't know what judge this was. I didn't print out the article. But, you know, Trump on Twitter, you know, he tweets something and then somebody says something nasty and he'll just block them. And so a judge will say that Trump blocking a Twitter user is unconstitutional, but it's okay for YouTube and for Facebook and for the Apple Store, whatever social media giant, to shut down an entire channel because of hate speech or because they violated their community standards. That's the new violating community standards. They're keeping it so general for a reason because then they don't really have to give reasons. They're private companies. They feel like, oh, we can do whatever we want. These are our standards, our rules. We can block anyone we want to. And technically they're right. They can block anyone they want to. The problem with that is that, like in my case, I'm trying to think, okay, so what do we do? Where do we go from here? It'd be really nice if big channels like PewDiePie and some of the other ones that have the most viewers would see what's going on and say, you know what, we're not dealing with this. We're going somewhere else, and take all of their viewership with them. But they make so much money off of YouTube and other sources. They're so monetized by it that I don't think that's going to happen. You know, and there's been a degree of heat put on PewDiePie for things in the past. I don't really follow his channel. I just know he's one of the big names on YouTube, and he's been under fire before. There are other ones too who have done, and this censorship issue has come up. In fact, YouTube changed their community standards earlier this year because this one guy, gosh, I can't remember his name. He had some snide comments. He actually was out in the woods and he saw somebody who had committed suicide, like laying dead there in the woods, and he laughed like it was funny. And I don't know what else happened with that, but after the heat that YouTube got from, you know, that being out there and how many views it got, I think they probably demonetized that guy or shut him down. I don't know if he was able to appeal it and come back or what ended up happening. Maybe somebody in the notes can, or somebody in the chat can say. But all of these community standards have been coming out because the social media giants, they're having to put more and more of their own resources and money into watching the kind of content because they get a bad name. And it really all comes down to the dollar, because the advertisers don't want to be associated like that guy who laughed about a guy who committed suicide. Whoever those advertisers were under that video were probably pretty upset that they were being associated with something like that. So, but it's not all about money either. I think it's a bad business decision for Facebook and YouTube to take Alex Jones down. Like him or not, the guy has brought millions of viewers. I mean, he had over 2 million subscribers on YouTube. So Alex Jones is going to end up with even more subscribers wherever else he ends up. So let's see if anybody in the chat has. Okay, Allie is asking for Maranatha Morning's email. I don't know if anybody put it in there, but it's maranathamorning@gmail.com. Maranatha Morning, all one word, @gmail.com. So let's see here. I'm going to scroll up. Diane Blue says, ever since I was made a moderator on another Christian chat, YouTube has been messing with me. Sarah Adams, they're going to go after our kids because they can't get to us. I will be homeschooling my daughter if we make it that far. She's 2. That's good. That's great. Suzanne, nothing new under the sun. Right, right. Oh, Vera saw Death of a Nation last night. What'd you think? You might have put it, yeah, it was excellent. It was really, really good. There was so much in it, and I saw it really late at night. Like the first showing I could make it to, it was Saturday night, was at 10:50 at night. So I'm watching it, and I was tired. And I'm like, oh, I wish I wasn't so tired because I really want to soak this in. So I think when it comes out on video, I think I'm going to buy it, or I hope it's available on Amazon. I'm sure it will be. So. Yeah, a bunch of, okay. So Guy is talking about psychiatry. And let's see, they don't want the biblical way of helping people out of the gay lifestyle. Yeah, that was another thing that John Haller talked about yesterday, was how there's a scientific study that they did recently on trans people entering the dating arena, and how they don't have the kinds of opportunities. Like if you looked at a subset or a set of 100 people, and out of those 100 people, like how many of those would the transgender person have the ability or opportunity to possibly date? And the article, or the study, was saying that they wouldn't have very many opportunities, because even though all these people are out of the closet and they're out and proud and all that stuff, not very many people want anything to do with it. Like they don't want to go and date these people. And now we're called transphobic, those of us who don't want to date a transgender person. We're transphobic, and we're somehow taking away opportunity from them. Like, this is just how dark and how twisted the world is getting, that, you know, we're losing our free speech. We're losing our freedom to even have an individual thought. You know, now I'm a transphobic because I don't want to date a transgender person. Wow. Yeah, you have to go. You have to go and see John Haller's update. Yeah, the propaganda, it's out of control. So, wow. Vera says, I've been witnessing to my friend who is a psychiatrist who has most of her patients that are transgenders and want to commit suicide. Yeah. Linda says, money isn't a priority for the left. They want control. And that is where the proof in the pudding on that is the fact that what's going on with Alex Jones is bad for business. You know, Alex will be fine. He'll be fine. In fact, you'll hear more from him now than ever before. But YouTube and Facebook and all the others will take a hit from this. In fact, a part of me wants to just get rid of my Facebook altogether. A part of me wants to get rid of YouTube, but then, you find yourself making compromises because, I'm not ready for that. I haven't, gotten a hold of the next thing, and I'm not securely set up over there yet. So that's really what I'm trying to do, is find another place where there's a little more security for the future, for free speech, because I don't really feel like we have that here on YouTube. I really don't. Sarah, she's got the armor of God. She'll go into the lion's den, she said. Yep. Yeah, I feel like anytime I come on YouTube, I'm kind of entering the lion's den. I really do. I mean, if we're at the point now where we can't even say the name Alex Jones, we're there. So, okay, so let me see. Let me look at the other high points of this. Oh, you know what? Really quick, too. I'm going to switch my screen over and show you guys something. Just a second. Okay. See if it's gonna work. I'm in a different setup today. I'm trying to, I have another computer and I'm gonna test it to see if it's any faster than this one. It might be a little faster. It's not really much newer than my laptop. I have it connected to my TV. So I think next broadcast, I'm going to try to broadcast from it instead of this one. I'm only halfway there in my setup because it takes a while to move computers around. And so I'm trying to avoid having to buy a new computer because they're expensive. Okay, so let's see here. Yes, this is what I want. Okay. This is from debate.org, and we're talking about fascism. We're talking about the left and the right. We're talking about, what do they really stand for versus what we're being led to believe they stand for. So let me scroll in on this. This person, in response to the question, are the fascists really those on the left or those on the right, which the left wants to point that those of us on the right are the fascists. So let's see what this person has to say. I think it's really interesting and straight to the point. The idea of a linear left to right political spectrum is stupid, but in those terms, fascism would be left-wing. Contrary to popular belief, fascism can be most accurately defined as the political belief that the state is more important than the individual. This belief is what allowed fascists to justify pursuing racial purification of humanity. That's an interesting thought. What does that remind you of? Eugenics. They considered the individual rights of those they killed as less important than the greater good that they fervently believed would come to humanity through the supremacy of a certain race. Essentially, fascism focused on community rather than the individual, which is undoubtedly a hallmark of the left wing. In fact, Nazi is an acronym for National Socialist German Workers' Party in German. So in English, it doesn't exactly translate perfectly, but in German, that's where the word Nazi comes from, is from the National Socialist German Workers' Party. Obviously, a self-declared socialist workers' party is very clearly left-wing. Also, the right wing is always considered to be more focused on religion than the left, and fascist states were bitterly opposed to religion. The Nazis actually set up a religion called positive Christianity. That's interesting, too. Think of all of this prosperity movement that's going on. Positive Christianity, which incorporated racial elements in the swastika and was intended to gradually move Germany away from Christianity toward mystical Darwinist vitalism based on ancient Vedic or Aryan rituals. Mussolini was forced to cooperate with the Catholic Church to some extent because the Italian people were overwhelmingly devout Catholics. However, on a personal level, Mussolini was always very contemptuous of religion and often privately referred to priests as black flies. Finally, when fascism was on the rise throughout Europe, it was the ideology of young liberals based on bold new ideas like eugenics that conservatives shunned. So another thing that the Death of a Nation was talking about is how when Hitler's group of cronies were together trying to figure out how they were going to, exactly define, how they went and attacked the Jews. How do you even define who a Jew is? And according to the way that in America, we defined who were African Americans, back during the days of slave trading, it was like, they would go back like one generation. And if you had African American, like one generation back, like your parents, that's it, So it was just very cut and dry and very, very extreme. And the Nazis didn't even take it that far. The way that they defined who was a Jew and who wasn't was more, not as extreme, not as like basically there would be less people that would be considered Jews. If you had someone far back in your family who was African American, according to the standards of America during the time of the slave trade, you would still be in that group. But according to the program of the Nazis, which we all know is very extreme, they didn't even take it that far. So it's just, but they used that as a jumping off point. They used the way that America, it just, some of the stuff we've never learned before in school, and they don't teach it. So all of this true history, and he backs it up, all this history is dying. History is being rewritten. The narrative is changing to hide some of the crimes of what the left is doing to indoctrinate our future generations into believing this lie, which is completely what the Bible warns us about. Of, those who hate the truth are going to just readily accept the lie. So we just read about how Goliath is trying to take his own fascism and impose it on the flea. Okay. D'Souza explains the current leftist tactic of targeting and removing political dissidents from jobs or positions of influence is simply an old fascist tactic carried over to the present day. We saw Erdogan doing the same thing during that whole coup. So many people were taken out of their positions. The Nazis called this Gleichschaltung, meaning coordination, but it really refers to beating the whole society, using the institutions of culture, media, film, the state against your opposition to make them cower before you. The reason Trump is such a renegade is because he refuses to cower before these guys. Mitt Romney will cower. McCain will cower. Conservative intellectuals are perfectly happy to do genuflections, he calls it, but Trump won't do it, and I think he's stronger for it. D'Souza argues that fascism has a specific meaning, even though the left simply uses it as a slur against people they don't like. The New York Times best-selling author explains how fascism grew out of socialism when leftist intellectuals needed an explanation for why Karl Marx's supposedly inevitable communist revolution was failing to manifest. Fascism is an outgrowth of Marxism and of socialism. Now, and we can pause there and look at what's going on in Venezuela. The last I heard is they have 1,000,000% inflation in Venezuela right now. Guys, we gotta, in this sense, we have to be like Trump and just not be afraid. Don't be afraid. Just get the truth out. At the end of the 19th century, a lot of intelligent Marxists were scratching their heads because a lot of the prophecies of Marx weren't coming true. Marx had predicted the outbreaks of communist revolutions in countries like England and Germany, and this just wasn't happening. So the smart Marxists said, something is wrong with Marx. We need to modify it. We need a kind of new Marxism, if you will, for the 20th century. Out of that, he said, came two offshoots: Leninist Bolshevism, itself a revision of Marxism, and Mussolini's fascism. Mussolini was, in fact, a Marxist. the most famous Marxist in Italy along with Gramsci, and Mussolini was the editor of the Socialist Party magazine, de Souza noted. So when Mussolini became a fascist, it was seen as a leftist move. Shortly after Mussolini's march on Rome, establishing the first fascist regime in the world, Lenin sent a telegram of congratulations. Why? He recognized Mussolini as a fellow revolutionary of the left. What was also interesting is FDR really looked up to Mussolini, really did. That's also, he talks about that in the movie too. Yet many progressives would simply dismiss that history as having no contemporary importance. It's a critique de Souza recognizes. What does this matter today? He asks rhetorically, and he had a direct answer. First of all, the ideology of the Democratic Party now, its economic ideology, is essentially indistinguishable from fascism. It's closer to fascism than it is to, say, Marxian socialism. Consider this. Socialist countries like to nationalize private industry. De Souza said that in his native country of India, the socialist governments since the 40s have taken over the banks, the energy sector, the airlines, and other industries. That's what's going on in Venezuela. Now in America, we don't have that, even under Obama. Look at Obama. We have private hospitals. We have private health insurance companies, but the government tells them what to do. The government sets the prices. The government decides who's eligible. So we have state-directed capitalism. We've seen that in the banking sector, investment, housing, we've seen that in the energy sector. This state-directed capitalism much more closely approximates classical fascism than it does classical socialism. We saw a lot of heavy financial regulation. That was one of the first things Trump did, was he got rid of a lot of that heavy regulation on the banks. He explains that fascism reduces individuals to a kind of cell whose rights don't matter but simply exist to serve within the living organism of the state. Well, hey, does that sound like the platform of the Republican Party or the Democratic Party? Given the massive power of the left, what can be done? De Souza offered two concrete suggestions. The first solution is to be informed, and I don't mean be informed in a generic sense. I mean have at your disposal, in your quiver, the arrows to shoot down the big lie. In my last book and movie, Hillary's America, I tried to shoot the race card, or shoot down the race card, show how bogus it is. Democrats transferring responsibility for their own bigotry onto the Republican Party, which was trying to stop them. This is what's going on with the fascism card. The real fascists are on the left. Fascism is a leftist ideology. They're trying to project it onto the right. You need to be able to have the weapons to shoot them down. So that's what we're trying to do here today. I'm not really so much concerned per se with politics, but I believe that our core values dictate our politics. If you are a left-leaning person, that's because at the core of you, those are your values. If you're a right-leaning person, same thing. That's really what's at the core of your being. That's why you believe in freedom of speech. That's why you believe in, upholding the Constitution and Second Amendment rights, First Amendment rights, and all of those wonderful things. We believe in the individual. We believe in our nation. So the second suggestion is more immediate. In response to the rise of the alt-left, Antifa, de Souza urged the Trump administration to no longer allow progressive extremists to riot and attack people as they've been doing for so long. We need to enforce the law across the board. Sure, the white supremacist who plowed down that poor woman, he's going to get his comeuppance. I'd like to see the felony rioters from the inauguration also receive criminal punishment. More than 200 of them, including 11 journalists arrested for rioting, that carries 5 to 10 years in prison. I mean, have you seen the videos of what happened after Trump got elected? People with crowbars beating through glass windows. I mean, did we go out there and do that during Obama's 8-year reign? No. What we did was we got out there and voted and got him out, got rid of him, and didn't take Hillary as an option. And yet, from the left's point of view, going back to the 60s, they'd be like, oh, I'll spend a night in jail. I'll be out in the morning. I'll then be on MSNBC. But I think we need to say no. The law should be enforced across the board. And once we start handing out 5 and 10 year sentences, some of these Antifa guys will think twice. I agree. Take a drink. Getting all dry. So yeah, can't get away with murder. I mean, it's sad to think after all the destruction. Think about, the businesses. How much destruction. They don't want to make claims on their insurance to get all that stuff paid for, because then their insurance prices go up. So it's like, no matter what, it's costing them something, their deductible, plus their insurance going up. And then these people get off for free. They go to jail and they get out the next day and nobody charges them with, all these violent acts. It's terrible. Guy says, yep, enforcement of the current laws. Allie says, look up, your redemption draws nigh. Yes, it does. Yes, it does. So let me look at my notes here. Oh, another thing really quick. I've been going longer than I expected to go, but I have something kind of interesting about Elul. And I think it kind of goes hand in hand with what we're talking about here. You'll see what I mean. Let me share my screen. Okay. History of Elul 1 through Elul 11. Okay. Month of repentance. Like the king is in the field. Okay. So we were talking about this. Moses goes up Mount Sinai to get the second set of instructions. In 1886, South Carolina's largest quake on Rosh Chodesh, the new moon. In 1914, Japan declared war on Germany, honoring agreement with Britain. In 1950, a 7.2 Santiago quake. In 1961, the Berlin Wall was up. In 2007, an 8.0 in central Peru. And I remember there being a lot of those in that area of the world in 2015. I remember there were a lot of earthquakes in South America. 2008, Ramadan begins and then ends Day of Remission, last day of 7-year cycle, September 2008. Gregorian and Hebrew calendars align. That's really interesting. 2014, Hurricane Marie, 20-year high surfs, Rosh Chodesh 1. 2015, September begins day-for-day alignment with 33 AD, Jesus' last months on earth. And then 33 AD, Messiah's 40-day fast possibly begins Elul 1, same picture as Moses. And we talked about that a little bit before. And then today we're actually in day 2. 1950, there was an 8.6 earthquake in India, Tibet. A lot of people passed away. 1950, Pope Pius XI declares Year of Jubilee, the Shemitah year. Pope defines the Assumption of Our Lady as the dogma of Catholic faith. In 1950, August 15th, I don't know what they mean by that. This writer was born, middle name Mary, raised Catholic. I'm not sure what they mean by that. And then they give, a couple more earthquakes, one of which was in California they're calling it a Shemitah year, and a 7.1 in Ecuador in 2010. So, wow. In 1959, on Elul Day 3, a 7.3 at Yellowstone National Park. I didn't know that Yellowstone had experienced earthquakes that strong that recently. I have to verify that. I have not verified that. So maybe somebody knows who knows more about Yellowstone. But that's a very strong earthquake for Yellowstone, a 7.3, 1959, and on Elul Day 3. That's actually tomorrow. I'm not saying that a strong earthquake's going to happen in Yellowstone tomorrow. Don't take it that way. Not at all. So yeah. Just saying that there are patterns of things that happen in the month of Elul, this 40 days of repentance leading up to the Feast of Trumpets. I think it's a time definitely to be in prayer, to stay close to the Lord, and pray for this nation. Definitely go see that movie, Death of a Nation. It's a great date night. It's really, really interesting. Go get some popcorn, enjoy. You'll learn something from it. And I actually want to see it again because there's so much information in it that watching it once, especially that late at night for me, I want to see it again. So, Seek Jesus. Hey, he said, just tuned in. What are y'all doing? We are talking about so many things: fascism, censorship, the truth. So, Guy says, Mary Greeley channel keeps tabs on the whole Yellowstone thing. Yep. Yeah, there's been a lot of earthquakes in Alaska recently. It's like things in Hawaii have quieted down, and it's like it jumped over to Alaska. So, Candy says there are so many things that are being done to cause gender confusion, even vaccines and some water sources I have heard. I pray so many find Jesus and can change. That was one of the things that Alex Jones has made fun of so much for. You know how he gets on the... I can't even imitate it. I think I would just fall on the floor laughing. But... he talked about the water sources and how chemicals are being added to our water sources and that it's causing even the frogs to turn gay. And he did it with that scratchy, like really loud, abrasive voice with like his eyes like this big. And then, then they make fun of the guy because of it. Even though sometimes he says really profound things, every once in a while, the left will grab hold of one of the things he says. And there is some truth in what he's saying. I mean, we're being indoctrinated. Alex Jones is like on point about certain things. And then, he talks about the reptilian elite and stuff like that. And believe me, I get it. I've always felt like John Kerry was kind of reptilian. He even does that weird thing. He kind of, if you've seen him, on the news enough, he does this weird thing with his face. It's like a twitch, and he kind of sticks his tongue out, and he kind of just looks like a lizard. And I'm not making fun of the guy. I'm just saying there's just something weird, like something's not right with him. He just seems evil to me. I get that impression about Obama too. I just don't think there's any redeeming goodness in some of these people that were in control of our country for 8 years. I don't really see anything redeeming about Obama, not at all. So, but I'm glad we do have Trump. I don't think he's the Messiah. Things are obviously he can't fix everything. Look what just happened. Freedom of speech is definitely under attack, but it's in the private sector, and it's going to have to be people like us who, the squeaky wheel that gets the grease. I mean, if enough of us are like, no, that's it. But I mean, are we really willing to shut down our Facebook pages? Are we really willing to walk away from these social media platforms that have become like an evergreen part of our lives? That's really what it boils down to. So, 51 and Happy says, I never wanted to learn about the Nephilim, but they are real. And then Guy says, yeah, me too. I can't watch Alex Jones too much. Vera Anderson, Joe Biden is creepy and Obama is creepy, especially his eyes. Yeah, reptilian equals demon possession. And then Nancy says, Alex Jones is as American as apple pie. Yeah. Yeah. Guy says, I don't watch him all the time because I get too into it. Yeah. But, yeah. I definitely agree about Obama. I know people who think he was the greatest. I know. Most people in my family, I mean, that's what they talk about in the very beginning of the movie Death of a Nation. They're showing what was going on the national news and how it was like a temper tantrum. It was like the mainstream, lamestream, left-wing media had a giant temper tantrum all at the same time. And I was laughing so hard I was crying. It was hysterically funny. I mean, they just didn't see it coming. That was what was so funny about it. They had believed their own lie. And they really do. They believe their own lie. So, and that's why we need to pray for them, that their eyes could be opened and that they would see the truth, because they don't. They have no idea. They really do believe that we're the fascists and that we're that we're evil, and that we're so mistaken, and then we're like, no guys, no gals, actually this is what's really going on. See this for what it is. But instead they would just rather shut us up than have a disagreement and work it out. So yeah, Gloria says, I can't buy into Oprah either. Candy says he has some correct inside information. Yeah, and in fact, some of the conspiracy theories that he has come out with have ended up, he's had correct information. The whole Sandy Hook thing with whether or not those kids really died, that would be a really hard one to fake. And I'm not going to take a stance on that because I really don't know enough about it. But it's so controversial. You're talking about children. That's what, supposedly got him in so much trouble. But he's allowed to have an opinion. He's allowed, we live in a free country, he's allowed to have that opinion that it was faked. Gosh, I would so rather that be the case and that those kids really didn't pass away. But more likely is that they did. So, all right, everyone. I'm going to pray, and then I'm going to let you all go for today. I've gone on for almost an hour, and I expected it to be more like a half an hour, but that seems to be how it goes. Well, dear Yeshua, we come before you today. We just thank you for this opportunity. I ask that you guide our steps, that you would show us the way. If there's some other way that we can fellowship in the future with more freedom to be able to speak the truth, I would just ask that you reveal that to us and that you bring it all together so that we can jump over to that space and just show the world the truth of what's really going on, and that their scales would be lifted from their eyes and their ears, that they would see and hear the truth, and that more would come into the saving knowledge of you because of what's going on, that you could somehow use this for your glory. And I know that that is what you always do. So in Jesus' mighty name we pray, and we thank you and we glorify you. Amen. Love you all. Kevin Jung says, have a great day in him. All right, guys. I will, I don't know what the schedule is going to be this week. I'm hoping this Friday, I haven't actually talked about this yet. I hope this Friday to have Pastor Reeves. He had a situation with a water main in his neighborhood that broke last week, and they couldn't use the water in their house, and no showers, and no anything. So it's been a little crazy. So, but we'll get together. It's no rush. The information that we are, going to talk about is kind of timeless. So it will be great. And again, that the Lord would use it all for his glory. So somebody's asking about a platform. Let me check it out here just a second. Oh gosh, Last Generation says there will be a famine in the world, a famine of the word. Yep. That and that is, I think, what we're seeing now is a fulfillment of that. So what's Patreon? Patreon is another platform which I believe actually has live streaming. I've never done a live stream on Patreon before, but I do have a Patreon account. So I'm going to be looking more into that. The point of Patreon for most people who have one has really been to offer a place other than PayPal to offer support to ministries or creators, whether they be like artists or whatever you're creating. In my case, it's videos, truther type videos, I guess, Christian truthing. So it's really been focused on that. So I haven't done a lot of disseminating information on Patreon, but I'm noticing Israeli News Live, Paul Bagley is starting to only put like his most controversial information on Patreon and not putting it over here on YouTube. So I probably should do it that way too, but I don't know. I don't really like, segmenting things like that. If I get taken down because of being, freely speaking, then it happens. But just know you can look through my links that I put underneath this video later, and you'll see that I do have that platform already set up. So that is one way to find me, Maranatha Morning on Patreon. I set up a BitChute account, BITCHUTE, but I don't see that they have an app yet. It seems like they're really new, but they are there's a lot of conservative content on BitChute. But most people are using their phones, so I just don't know if that's really a feasible one yet. And there was one other one, but I can't remember the name. I'm going to have to set it up. So I'll get with Scotty and find out, what the name of that other one was that I think Alex Jones is using it. So I'll do some digging. And this week I'm expecting to have another platform set up just in case, because you just never know. So... all right, everybody. Have a great day. Love you. Bye.